everyone, Jim here. Welcome to my channel. Well, as promised, I'm going to do part 2 of my Sherlock Holmes bookshelf tour. But first, I wanted to thank Nick from the Book Graveyard for having me on their live stream last night, along with Jake from Pulp Mortem, Tim from Secret Fire Books, and I also had a chance to meet Duncan McCurdy, who's a fellow crime story enthusiast, and he's a fellow Canadian, and we had a lot of fun on the live stream last night, and we talked about the Wade Miller book, The Big Guy. So we had some fun on there, and I'm going to post it down below. I think Nick probably still has it up on his channel, so you can go by and check it out if you want to watch it. So yeah, I want to thank them for that, and maybe we'll do it again sometime. So I haven't done a lot of reading the last week or two. This last week has been pastiche week for Sherlock Holmes, and I was going to read The Sherlockian by Graham Moore, which isn't really a pastiche. It's got some, Sherlock Holmes themes, obviously, so I didn't get around to reading that. So what I'm probably going to do, since I really haven't had a lot of time, I might just skip pastiche week and go right to nonfiction week come Monday. I was kind of hoping to receive my copy of The Life and Times of Arthur Conan Doyle by Michael Corrin by now, but it looks like it's not going to reach me until the middle of March. So there's a couple of other options I can do to read for nonfiction week. Biographies and such, and books about Sherlock Holmes. So I'm gonna choose and see what I'm gonna read this next week, and I will let you guys know here. But as promised, I'm gonna do part 2 of my bookshelf tour. There's actually four bookshelves left of Sherlock Holmes stuff, so I'm probably not gonna get to all of them this month unless I rush through it now, but already this has probably gone on too long, so I'm not going to get a chance to get to anything but this one shelf here. But let's get started on these, and I'll show them to you. So to begin with, the original annotated Sherlock Holmes books. I don't have the dust covers, unfortunately, because they were destroyed when I got these books, and I just threw them out, and I just have the just the books themselves without the dust cover. But these are the essential Sherlock Holmes annotated books, and these are the annotated Sherlock Holmes written by William S. Baring Gould, or collected by William S. Baring Gould. And these are ones I reference all the time, I look at all the time. They've got some great annotations. It's a very well-researched and scholarly set. I mean, Baring Gould knew his stuff when it came to Sherlock Holmes, and he is the one who also wrote this book, which I recommend, and I showed this in my paperback book tour last year, Sherlock Holmes of Baker Street, which is kind of a biography of Sherlock Holmes, and that's essential. And he's the one who wrote, or who collected and put together these volumes here. There's the this is a 5th printing, by the way. There's the end papers of Sherlock Holmes London. And it's got the Sidney Paget and other illustrations throughout. I mean, photographs, all kinds of stuff. And this is really, if you want an annotated Sherlock Holmes, this is the one to buy if you can find it. There's 2 volumes in this set, volume 1 and 2, obviously, and he has his own chronology for Sherlock Holmes, and that sometimes is at odds with other people's idea of what Sherlock Holmes chronology is, but personally I like to go with the Baring Gould chronology. Now the second annotated set is by Leslie S. Klinger with these beautiful books. This is volume 1. So there's 3 volumes in this one as opposed to the 2 by Baring Gould. But you know, you probably see it behind me in other videos where you can see Sherlock Holmes silhouette. But these are really, really, I mean, I had to have these, you know, and for referring to, you know, things, all Sherlock Holmes, I refer to the original ones, but this is just a nice one to open up and read and look at. It's very beautifully done. And again, this has all the, it has all the pictures in it. And yeah, it's a nice one to have. And you don't need both, but me being, you know, a completist, I had to have both. And I know there's a third set out there, and I should have looked into it before I came on, but there is a third annotated set, and I forget who it's by, so I can't really attest to how good that one is, but that might be worth looking at too, and checking that out. But yeah, so those, here's a third volume. And of course, this deals with the 4 novels, whereas the prior 2 deal with all the short stories in the 2 volumes. So they're nice to have. Now, these originally came in a box set. The first 2 came in a box, and then the last one was in its own sleeve. But I don't have them. I just bought them secondhand without those. But still, you know, there they are, and I've got them. So here we got a couple of other. We have the Sherlock Holmes Companion. I might have shown that one before in my introduction video, I think I did. Encyclopedia Sherlockiana by Matthew E. Bunsen. They're just wonderful books. You know, nice reference volumes to have. And here's the Collected Adventures and Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, with a very cool cover. Like, I like to kind of pick these up where I can. I finally had to stop picking them up because they'd come out with new collections of Sherlock Holmes stories in beautiful volumes, and I couldn't keep buying them because I have more than enough. I have all the original stories, and yeah, it was just getting to be a little too much, so I finally had to put a stop to buying new collections of the original Sherlock Holmes stories. This was probably one of the very first ones I got, the original illustrated Sherlock Holmes, and this has 37 short stories and the complete novel, and a complete novel, and it was Hound of the Baskervilles is included in that. So this has the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, the Hound of the Baskervilles, and the Return of Sherlock Holmes. So that's just a very, very nice volume to have, and that's from Castle Books. So that's a nice one to get. And I have another Castle book, and this is the original illustrated Arthur Conan Doyle. These aren't Sherlock Holmes stories. These are his other original stories. There's the back. This has kind of reprints his Round the Fire stories. So, you know, the story of the Beetle Hunter, the Man with the Watches, the Lost Special, it goes on and on. The story of the Japan box, the story of the Jew's breastplate, and then it's got some other, Rodney Stone is in here, the Tragedy of the Carrasco. There's a Brigadier Gerard story in here. So that's just, that's a nice hardcover to have too. And that goes nicely with my original illustrated Sherlock Holmes book. And I have kind of a children's mystery book, Sherlock Holmes mystery book, and this nice little hardcover volume, and it's got some Sherlock Holmes stories in here. Talks about the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Talks about, there's a chapter on Jack the Ripper in here. It talks about what a policeman's lot was in Victorian England. Yeah, it talks about the Victorian underworld, what that was like back in the day. Yeah, this is a really, really good book, and I was happy to get this one. You know, and here it's talking about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson with that awesome drawing there. I don't know who did that, but it's very cool. And there's a picture of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. There's a bit of a biography on him. So that's a neat book to have. And here is, I got this at Indigo Books, and this is kind of their cheap Arcturus print books that they have. It's in a nice sleeve. I mean, it's not an expensive or quality book, but it's a nice looking volume. And this has it's a selection of his greatest cases, so selected stories. It's got Hound of the Baskervilles, Red-Headed League, Five Orange Pits, The Man with the Twisted Lip, Adventure of the Speckled Band, Copper Beaches, Silver Blaze, and it goes on. And yeah, so that's just a nice book to have. And I think it was soon after I got this one that I decided, yeah, I got to stop picking all these up because it's just taking up a lot of space, and I don't need the stories, even though, you know, the books themselves look very nice. And here we have an illustrated classic of The Hound of the Baskervilles. And I picked this up secondhand years ago. And, you know, the text is very, very big, very large text. But let me find an illustration here for you. So you get some nice illustrations in here. So that's a nice book to have on the shelf. Just to have a nice hardcover of Hound of the Baskervilles with nice drawings. I mean, it was worth it to me. So that's yeah, that's just a nice volume. And I don't think this one ever had a dust jacket. I don't think these ones had dust jackets. I think they just kind of came like this, cloth bound. Now we have the Sherlock Holmes Companion, which is, as it says, an elementary guide, just what you'd think it would be. Just a companion to, there's the movie poster to Billy Wilder's Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. And it's got stuff like that in it, which is really nice to have. I mean, if you're a fan at all of the movies and of the books themselves, and yeah. Let's see if I can find something nice for you. There's a cover of the Strand Illustrated magazine, and that had a Sherlock Holmes adventure in it. It featured the adventure of the dying detective, that issue. So yeah, that's nice to have. And these are just books I acquired along the way. You know, this one here is A Study in Scarlet, a Sherlock Holmes murder mystery, and it's based on the story. It's not the actual story, but it's like you're the actual police officer or Sherlock Holmes, and you're given all the clues, you know, letters and all the clues that would become, you know, the case of Study in Scarlet. You know, there's a photograph of the dead guy, and then you had to take all the clues. There's a ring, there's a card. I think the original one, I have another book called The Miscellany Massacre, and it was a little bit of a different format where you actually got a little envelope with a poison pill, not really, but you know, you get all the little clues as actual physical things. And I think that's what this was initially. Then when they reprinted it, they just have pictures of the clues instead of having inserts, you know, of letters and pills and things like that. But then you had to kind of solve it at the end, and in the end had like a sealed envelope, and then you'd open up the envelope and see if you were right. So that's kind of cool to have. Then we have this is another kind of kids thing, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson Annual. And yeah, it's got a comic book in it, Sherlock Holmes comic book. It's got like a full prose story in here. The case of the cat burglar with some neat drawings. So this is a bit of an oddity. There's some photographs, just a bit of yeah, the comic book, The Case of the Jade Immortal. Yeah, so that's neat to have. Then we have, actually I have two copies of this. I'll show them both to you. I've got the Sherlock Holmes scrapbook, edited by Peter Haining, and there's another copy of it there. That's an older version. This is a newer one. I bought this used. I bought this one new at the store years ago. So that's, they're neat to have. And it's just like, what do you think? It's just a scrapbook of all kinds of stuff, Sherlock Holmes. And we have another kids kind of version. I don't know if you've ever seen these volumes, but a lot of the classics were printed in these big hardcover books. This is the casebook of Sherlock Holmes. And there was just kind of all kinds of, they were annotated too. So this actually features A Study in Scarlet, selected short stories, and then The Hound of the Baskervilles. And yeah, these are nice to have. I got a couple copies of this too. I think I've got another copy somewhere, but that's just a neat thing to have. They don't make things like that anymore. This is a book on the great detectives that features Sherlock Holmes, Nero Wolfe, Philip Marlowe, Miss Marple, Hercule Poirot, Maigret, and Ellery Queen. And it just has kind of little illustrations and original stories like of this author, how he met all these detectives and these characters. And I have a hardcover of The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, illustrated by Eric Kincaid, and that's just a neat picture of Sherlock there. And nice end papers. And there's kind of illustrations you'd find in it. So that's the story, just with or all the stories with illustrations to them all. Kind of a cool book to have. And again, I found that used. I mean, it's amazing what you can find when you go looking, when you go to thrift stores and used bookstores, and the things you can find is kind of amazing. This one I've had a long time. A little outdated now because I think this was 1976, mid-70s, so it's really kind of out of date now, but up to that point, it has all the Sherlock Holmes stories, all the pastiches, even I think articles that were written about Sherlock Holmes, a classified and annotated list of materials relating to their lives and adventures, the World Bibliography of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. And just a beautiful, big hardcover book. Talks about the individual tales, Braille editions, shorthand editions, manuscripts, the Apocrypha, the writings about the writings, Sherlockians and the Societies, memorials and mementos, games and competitions, actors' performances and recordings, parodies, pastiches, burlesques, and travesties and satires. So it's an awesome book to have if you collect Sherlock Holmes. And I refer to it quite often, but as I said, it's a little outdated now because there's been so many. I think I mean, he wasn't in the public domain when this came out, but he's since come into the public domain. So there's been so much more books, pastiches, and things written about Sherlock Holmes. But yeah, lovely to have, and happy to have it. And again, just the world of Sherlock Holmes, talking about his world and the time and the city that he lived in, and about the character, just and about Arthur Conan Doyle himself. Just a cool book to have. And these two, again, I've got 2 volumes of this. I didn't realize it when I bought this one years ago at the store, Sherlock Holmes in London. And this was called The Authentic World of Sherlock Holmes, but they're the same book. And it's an evocative tour of Conan Doyle's Victorian London by Charles Viney. And it takes the locations of, from the books, and it shows the photographs from that coincided with the stories, with the areas that the stories took place. So it's a very nice book to have, and I'm just fascinated by Victorian London, the time. And what we see here, for instance, left is Regent Street in the 1890s, and there's a map in here, and it's got coordinates for the map and how it corresponds to the Sherlock Holmes stories and what took place there and why it's important. And these are all photos from the actual era that the stories took place in. So yeah, these are nice to have. There's the London Bridge. So that's that shelf, and that probably this video's gone on long enough. See, I'm almost at what am I at? 22 minutes. So yeah, I'm not going to get to the other shelves, but I hope you enjoyed that one. It's a lot of fun going through these because I don't really go through them that often. So it's a good opportunity to take my books out and take a look at them and share them with you. 3 more shelves. I don't know if I'll get to them, but you guys let me know. If you want me to just continue on, I could continue on into March and show you the rest of what I have. So yeah, we'll leave it at that, and I will talk to you guys soon. Yeah, I'll have to let you know later what I'll be doing, what I'll be reading for this last week. So you guys take care and keep reading.